The Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra was a great flagship back in 2022 thanks to its 108 megapixel camera that was improved upon in terms of its autofocus that became more balanced in compared to its older predecessors, talking about the S21 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra. But the thing is that in 2026, the S22 Ultra is not a great device for you to buy for long-term use. Instead, it's a device you can just buy for just a short period of time, possibly just a year. So what are the reasons? Number one, an aging processor. You see, the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra came out with Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset, and this chipset was a great chipset back in the day, as well as its other counterpart, the Exynos 2200 chipset. But the thing is that Samsung focused on what? Peak performance. Apple focused on what? Efficiency, which means that a phone that its chipset was made for peak performance in 2022, it's being used in 2026, its peak performance is always going to what? Overshadow its efficiency now in 2026. Why? Because now this chipset it's outdated, meaning that you cannot get that peak performance that people got in 2022 now in 2026. Why? Because there are the other new or latest chipsets which are far better than the 8 Gen 1 or the Exynos 2200 chipset, which means that frame rates in this phone when you're playing games drops rapidly. Like, even though if this phone tells you you're going to get a 120 Hz display or 120 Hz refresh rate, the frame rate still drops to 60 Hz most of the time because of this aging chipset that is used on the S22 Ultra, meaning that this is not a phone in which, or this is not a smartphone in which you will use for what? Long-term use, but for what? Short-term use, like I said earlier on, likely a year. Number two, battery life. For a very long time, Samsung have been using the 5000 mAh battery for a very long time. Even the latest S26 Ultra still uses the 5000 mAh battery. Now the question you need to ask yourself is, if the S22 Ultra uses this 5000 mAh battery and this phone came out in 2022, and now you're buying this smartphone in 2026, when you definitely know that this smartphone is over 3 years old, do you really think that such a battery will give you peak performance, or will you get full usage of the battery in 2026? Of course not, and that's because at least more than two persons must have used that phone, which means that the charging cycle has been heavily used since 2022 till now, meaning that the 5000 mAh battery of the S22 Ultra you're going to get is not going to be like those who got 5000 mAh battery S22 Ultra back in 2022, meaning that the battery is going to drain more faster and you will get that premium battery that you thought you were going to have with the S22 Ultra. Again, highlighting how much that this phone is just a smartphone you're going to get and use for just a few months and not for a long-term usage. Number three, display line issues. You see, last year someone asked me a question here on TikTok, and he asked me, what do I think about the S22 Ultra, whether it gets green line or pink lines easily? The truth is that the S22 Ultra doesn't really have green lines or pink lines easily like its counterpart, like the Note 20 Ultra, the S20 series, and the S21 Ultra. It doesn't. In fact, there are fewer models of S22 Ultra that does have the green lines or pink lines, particularly S22 Ultra with the Exynos chipset. These are the ones that mostly get the green lines and pink lines. But the truth is that the Snapdragon chipset still does have these green lines or pink lines, but it's rare. It's not as common like its older counterparts. Meaning that the best way for you to, if you were to get the S22 Ultra right now, even though if you want to use it for short-term use, you need to also make sure that you don't stress this phone. Like, you have to make sure that you're using a phone cooler when it comes to security patch, which I'll talk about very soon. Like, you don't allow your phone to heat up before you do it. You always need to make sure that your phone is always cool, because the moment you're using your phone is always hot, chances of having these green lines or pink lines becomes faster. Why? Especially if you're someone who's currently using an Exynos chipset. Meaning that even if you are going to get the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra in 2026 for short-term usage, make sure it's actually a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chipset and not an Exynos 2200 chipset. But if you ask me, I would still suggest you shouldn't get the S22 Ultra. But let's continue. Number four, older camera hardware. Like I said earlier on, The S22 Ultra came with the improved 108 megapixel main camera, which is actually magnificent, or it's great in terms of its autofocus, which was better or more improved in terms of its counterpart like the S21 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra. The S22 Ultra 108 megapixel camera became much better. But the thing is that in 2026, there are lots of improvement in terms of camera. For example, almost all Android companies, including the iPhone right now, they are mostly focused on phones that clearly uses AI for its cameras. Meaning that if you are going to get an S22 Ultra right now, you're not going to get that AI features. In fact, this is the reason why Samsung A series users say that, oh, I love the fact that I got the Samsung Galaxy A56. Why? Because at least it has premium or AI features on it. Yes, because it does have that feature on it, but the S22 Ultra, you're not going to get an AI enhanced feature on it. So which means that if you're going to get an S22 Ultra, the camera shouldn't be the reason why you're going for it at all. Otherwise, you're not going to get an AI or a very great AI experience on the S22 Ultra, except you're just going to get it based on the fact you just want to have something that's to do with zooming quality, like autofocus being perfect. Then you can go for the S22 Ultra for short-term use. But of course, it's not something you should use for long-term, because now we're in the era whereby AI enhanced cameras are everywhere. So you get the point. Number 5, software support. Now there's a huge possibility that the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra is not going to get Android 17, and that's because this phone came out in 2022 with Android 12 and came out with a 4 years software update, meaning that it has completed its 4-year cycle, meaning that you're not going to get or expect any new software updates. The highest you're going to get at least is security patches, which of course Samsung will give out frequently. But the thing is that this is where you have to be careful now as a Samsung S22 Ultra user. Why? Because you need to understand that if someone is currently using the Exynos chipset and you want to do a security patch, you really need to be careful, because if your phone is hot and you're doing a security patch, chances of your phone getting these green lights or pink like I mentioned earlier on is still high. And that's the reason why most of the time, sometimes I tell people who get all these older flagships, don't even bother to do all the security patches most of the time. Because if you do it and your phone is hot, you don't have a phone cooler, and you do this software update or these security patches, of course, you get these green lines or these pink lines on your phone. And I believe you wouldn't want that on your smartphone. At the end of the day, you need to understand that if you are getting the S22 Ultra in 2026, you need to understand that the only time you should get this smartphone is only if you're getting it for short-term usage, or you're getting it at a bargain price, like you're getting that cheap price. I mean, the difference between the S22 Ultra and the Note 20 Ultra is huge. For example, the S-pen latency of the S20 Ultra, of the Note 20 Ultra, is actually 9 milliseconds. When it compared to the S22 Ultra, it's about 2.8 milliseconds, which means that when it comes to copying or controlling things with your pen, it's actually quite faster on the S22 Ultra. But instead of getting the S22 Ultra for long-term usage, I would suggest you get the S22 Ultra instead, or you get the Samsung Galaxy S24, or you actually get the S24 FE. These are smartphones I would prefer you get over the S22 Ultra. Why? Because they actually have long-term usage on it, and they actually have a bit of AI processing on it, compared to the S22 Ultra that doesn't have AI processing on its camera lenses. So I hope this video clears out on why you shouldn't get the S22 Ultra for long-term usage, but actually for just short-term, it's possibly just for a few months and you upgrade to the next. But at the end of the day, I'll just suggest you just get these phones I just mentioned. All right.